Gordon.
What?
Gordon, give me 20 minutes.
I just went down here.
Okay. What's going on, everybody? It's time for some player grades. I don't know, man. I felt like the summary of this game was that the Minnesota Vikings were the less shitty of the two shitty teams, kind of. Neither team played good, but Minnesota played less bad and were able to get the victory. I mean, 9 times out of 10 with that Kirk Cousins backward pass, that's a fumble. That usually is enough to cost you a game. And, the Vikings got one back. And I kind of view this one as, if the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the Vikings, the saltiest fan base in the league, this was a big-time matchup, NFC divisional or NFC championship game rematch. Like, this gotta be the wake-up call, man. Like, if this isn't, then nothing will, I guess you could say. If it wasn't, you get 3 wake-up calls, I guess. Like, 3 strikes, you're out. If the wake-up call against the Bucks wasn't enough, we didn't see any changes. We saw Jalen Mills get torched in that game, and nothing happened. The Jalen Mills was the reason we lost against Tampa Bay. Then we lose to the Tennessee Titans, and that was a bunch of reasons. Jalen Mills, again, got to be grouped in, but we had really, really bad offensive line play, questionable play calling, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Jim Schwartz had a terrible game against the Tennessee Titans. Corey Graham probably cost us the game in 4th and 15. So there was a bunch of people to blame, but then here we are again, losing to the Minnesota Vikings, and when you gotta start chalking up who's to blame, Jalen Mills is the common denominator. Jalen Mills is the next guy to blame, and every game Jalen Mills has had a fault, I would say, and it's not all Jalen Mills. And again, you guys know me, man. You know me. I dislike Jalen Mills at corner, but I'm not anti-Jalen Mills. I'm not like most people in this fan base want him cut. I just think he's playing the wrong position. But he did not have a good game. Adam Thielen just beat him like a fucking drum. Oh, it sucked. But, Jalen Mills was a reason we lost, but there was a lot of other reasons we lost. Doug Peterson had his probably worst called game since we lost to Kansas City last year. The fact that on that 4th and 20, first, I guess, you made the Minnesota Vikings burn a timeout. Maybe that was a way of thinking that really, really bad challenge when Stephon Diggs got clearly 3 feet in bounds. Maybe that was like, all right, we'll get one back. We'll get a timeout back. But Doug Peterson, I would say the biggest loser in this game, the biggest reason why we lost this game was Doug Peterson today. Doug Peterson's play calling was very, very bad. Defensively, the defense played all right. Giving up 23 points at home's not ideal, but look at the offense, man. As much as I want to blame Jalen Mills, and as much as Jalen Mills had a bunch of bad plays and had a bad game, I don't think you could probably say Jalen is the reason why we lost. This is 2 teams on paper that are pretty talented, but one team scored 20 points real early, and the other team had to pretty much on the last second of the game get up to 20 points. Like, this is Philadelphia. This is a team that pretty much scored 30 points at will last season. This is a Philadelphia team last season that at this point in the 4th quarter when Philly's, are they going to be able to come back and turn it around? Are they going to do this and that? Philly's already, last year was running the clock out. We were just abandoning the pass to bleed some clock. This is a Philadelphia offense that 23 points is the most points we've scored in a single game all year. That's not good enough, man. And honestly, Doug Peterson's to blame. I don't think we want to overstate, they lost, we lost our offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, to the Colts. We lost our QB coach, D. Filippo, who's now the OC for the Vikings. I don't see it. Are those guys no longer here making our offensive line play like dog shit? Luckily enough, the offensive line actually played pretty good in the second half, because this is always a second half team. But that offensive line was absolutely horrendous in the first half. Lane Johnson, I made a tweet. Lane Johnson needs to get back on the steroids. I don't know what's going on, man. People are trying to ask me. I might make a video out next week trying to figure out what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles and really sit down and kind of think about it, maybe give a critical analysis. I don't know yet. But I mean, it's tough, man. I honestly don't know I don't think there's one thing that's wrong. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get. There's not one thing that's wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a bunch of things. And is this team bad? No. Look at all of Philadelphia's losses. Philly hasn't got blown out. Philly almost came back to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Too little, too late. Philly almost, if Philly knew how to do anything on defense on the road, we would have beat the Tennessee Titans. And in this game here, almost came back, lost by 2 points. Same could be said in our victories. We haven't had any dominant victories, but Philly has not. Like, you can't say the Eagles are shitty. You can't say the Eagles suck. They're just average. Everything about the Eagles right now is average, and that's kind of what. That's kind of frustrating because I feel like if the Eagles are playing really, really bad, then you're like, well, usually when something's really, really bad in football, you can pinpoint what the mistakes are and be like, clearly they need to get rid of this. Clearly this player needs to get cut. Clearly this player needs to get benched, and then things are going to look better. That's not the case right now at the Philadelphia Eagles. You look at them and you're just like, it's units. Our secondary is not playing good. The only person that's playing good ball right now in our secondary is Malcolm Jenkins. Our offensive line's not playing good. The only guy that's playing good on our offensive line right now is Brandon Brooks. Our running backs, the rotation is dog shit. Surprise, surprise. Deuce Staley has a terrible rotation for the Philadelphia Eagle running backs. J.J., costly fumble, mental mistakes, the penalties. Feels like every time Philly gets a run of 7 or more yards, it's coming back with a penalty. Feels like any time, we get any momentum, there's just some stupid penalty. Special teams have been pretty good, let's be honest. But summary of this game. Not like, again, I can't say the Minnesota Vikings look like a good team. They don't. I would say the Minnesota Vikings, like I said, they looked less bad than the Eagles did today. There's still a lot of things to solve out there in Minnesota. And as an Eagle fan, I think the saltiest thing that I could probably say in this game is that Michael Bennett roughing the passer call. Did that decide the game? No. If that penalty didn't happen, does Philly win this game? I'd probably say most likely, maybe. Like, I feel like if that Michael Bennett penalty didn't happen, Phillies, you can't say for sure because we saw them give up huge gash plays, but that they get off the field, or at worst case it's 3 points instead of 4 points, and it drastically changes the game. Very, very bad penalty. I don't know if it's as bad as the Clay Matthews. They're different hits, but it was really, really bad, man. And like I said, I can't in good trying to act like I'm a somewhat half decent football fan and trying to not be super biased to say that, if Philadelphia didn't get that bullshit Michael Bennett roughing the passer, they would have won that game. I feel like the result more than not would have been different, but that wasn't it, man. That wasn't the only thing. So let's do some grades here, and then we'll get out of here because I want to go watch some Ozark. Philadelphia lost 23-21. Philly falls to 2-3. Minnesota Vikings go 2-2-1. Carson Wentz 24 of 35, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a sack fumble that was very fluky. But I mean, again, what do you got to say? You got to hold a fluke against the Eagles. Flukes, stuff like that goes each way. Philly didn't have the luck today when it came to that. That was a fluky ass touchdown for the Minnesota Vikings. But I mean, how do you predict that? How do you hold that against them? Minnesota had the bounce go their way that time. That's kind of when it rains it pours for the Philadelphia Eagles. But Carson Wentz looked really, really good. I mean, this is a Minnesota Viking defense that on paper should be good. Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, Linval Joseph, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Carson Wentz kind of lit them up a little bit. A little bit different than, say what Jared Goff did, but we don't have the playmakers that the Rams have right now. But Wentz, I expected, when I was kind of hyping up this game, I expected, knowing that Jared Goff went off on the Minnesota Vikings defense, that Wentz should go off too. And I would say 24-35, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, probably is considering kind of going off. He had a good game. He had a really, really good game. And Carson Wentz is probably the only bright spot on the offensive side. I would say Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz had a really bad game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whereas Carson Wentz, since he's been back, has not really had a bad game. So I'm giving Carson Wentz, he's getting A. I'm giving Carson Wentz a solid A for today. He had a couple, outside of that Linval Joseph thing, man, Carson Wentz, looked shaky behind the offensive line in the first half. He was still making throws. The connection with Alshon Jeffrey looks good. maybe A's a little bit generous. We'll give Wentz a B plus because I think for an A you got to get a win, or you got to have Carson Wentz go for 4 touchdowns, and it's more like no matter what Carson Wentz did, the defense was falling short. That wasn't that. So we'll give Carson Wentz a B plus. Run game non-existent. Jai had 8 carries. Wendell Small with 3 carries. Carson Wentz had 5 carries. Banned the run, man. They didn't have enough time to establish the run. They probably should have with how bad the offensive line was in pass protection in the first half. They just decided to just keep forcing the run for whatever reason. So run game's getting a C-. Looking at receiving, Zach Ertz, 10 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. He was good. I mean, some of those numbers are inflated because they were on the final drive where Vikings were pretty much playing prevent. But Zach Ertz, man, I really think Zach Ertz is closer to Travis Kelce when you're talking about the best tight ends than a lot of people give him credit for. I'm not going to come out here and say, Zach Ertz is the best tight end, or Zach Ertz is clearly better than Kelce. But I do think a lot of people say best tight ends goes Gronk, Kelce, and Ertz. Like if you're a halfway not remedial football fan, that's how you rank the tight ends. And even me, I've had it as like a pretty, like it's tier 1 is Gronk, tier 2 is Kelce, and then tier 3, Ertz is at the top of that third tier. I think it actually is pretty, I think it's getting closer now. I think that divide is getting closer. I think you probably can now say that Gronk's tier 1, and then tier 2 is Ertz and Kelce, and then it's everyone else. Because Ertz is probably the best route runner at tight end in the league. I would say Zach Ertz probably has the best hands at tight end in the league. He's just not as athletic as Travis Kelce. He's not as well-rounded as Gronk, which is the decider. Shelton Gibson had a 50-yard catch. Aguilar was all right. Alshon, 2 catches, 39 yards. I mean, Alshon, it's going to be hard for Alshon to get involved when Carson Wentz has to throw the ball so quickly, especially in the first half. Alshon's a guy, he's not a burner. You need a little bit of time for the route to develop, and when Carson Wentz is constantly under pressure, that's not going to happen. But Alshon looks good, made a bunch of big-time plays. Both of his catches were really, really notable. They moved the chains and stuff. So I'm going to give the receivers here on the day. I don't remember any really, really bad drops. So maybe there's a couple plays that the wide receivers want to have back. But I'll give the wide receivers B- on the day. Jake Elliott made all of his kicks. I really think Doug Peterson on 4th and 20, punting it. What was it? I can't remember if it was a 58-yarder or a 53-yarder. But he punted it. If Philly made, that's another thing. It's another thing. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Philly kicks that field goal. If they make it, then that touchdown at the end of the game would have won them the game. If they miss it, you have faith that the defense will give up a field goal, worst case scenario, which is exactly what happened with the Minnesota Vikings. So I think that was the turning point in the game. I actually think that play was the turning point more than the Ajayi fumble, more than maybe not the Ajayi fumble, but maybe that was bigger than the Michael Bennett bad passing call. Because the Ajayi fumble, clearly, if we got that touchdown, I think the momentum shift comes with the Eagles, and they get into halftime. They get the ball back. But I don't know, man. I want to hear what the press conference is. I want to hear them say, I want to hear Doug's explanation of it as the Nell Pumphrey signs on. Nice. But yeah, man, I don't know why, man. Jake Elliott's good for 50 yards. It doesn't make sense, man. You have a long field goal attempt with a kicker that's probably one of the best long field goal kickers in the league, and this was a kick to make it. What was it? A 3-point lead, or a 3-point deficit, and you fucking punt it, man. And not only do you punt it, the soft ass Philadelphia defense just plays soft coverage. You let Jalen Mills get behind, or not Jalen Mills. You let Stephon Diggs get behind. They end up kicking a field goal, as well as bleeding 6 minutes of clock. All right, looking at the defense. Special teams, though. Cam Johnson's one of the better punters in the league. Special teams gets a B. Looking at the defense, Jordan Hicks of the team 8 tackles. Sidney Jones at 7 tackles. There's a little bit of an injury worry about Sidney Jones, but he got off and walked on. Nigel Bradham had a good game. Jalen Mills did not look good. Jalen Mills had one big play. Do you guys see that video I posted on Twitter where Fletcher Cox just basically got in his face, started throwing around, man? Good on him. He got the message. I might have connections, and I was getting in touch with Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham actually had his best game of the year. Tackles for loss. I think he had 2 tackles for loss, and he had finally got a sack. He finally had his first big game. Avonte Maddox, who played safety, wasn't bad. I don't remember his name getting called. I don't remember getting beaten any coverage, so I guess that's a somewhat positive. It's not like he stuck out like a sore thumb like we saw Corey Graham against the Tennessee Titans, so maybe they have something there, even though, it's becoming a meme now. Put Jalen Mills at safety if Maddox can get the job done. I mean, if Maddox can just be at worst a guy that you don't hear his name called, which is like kind of like, you take that view for defensive linemen, you take that view for offensive linemen. Usually if your name isn't called, that's a good sign. So I think if is that the worst case we get with Maddox, obviously you want your guy to be a playmaker, but defense gets to see. Defense played good. They always play better at home. But, we all believe that our Eagle fans watching this, that this Philadelphia Eagles team has a good defense. To a great defense on paper. On what we saw last year. What we saw last year was a top 3 defense in the league. What we've seen this year is not that. If this Philadelphia Eagles team was a top 3 defense, they would have got that stand. They wouldn't have given up that field goal, and they would have put the ball in Carson Wentz's hands so that when he threw that touchdown to Zach Ertz, it would have been for the lead, and we would have got the victory. So yeah, defense, I'll give them a C. They weren't bad. The defense didn't cost us this game, but they didn't win us this game. And when the offense had that slow of a start in the first half, the Michael Bennett penalty, that's going to be something that I'll probably keep talking about because that was so bad, man. It was different. Like I said, it was different than the Clay Matthews against the Washington Redskins, but it was so bad. I remember like Moonlight Swami on Twitter tried to tweet at me and say, "Oh, he went at the knees," and like literally all the officials were agreeing with me, saying he went for the ass, slid down his legs, and then wrapped him up at the ankles. But now knowing that I might have pissed off Moonlight Swami, I'm prepared for Carson Wentz to get like a -3 on the Madden ratings. So sorry about that, Eagle fans, if I triggered him a little bit, but it was a bad game, man. It was. I mean, the good news is, if there's any silver lining, the Giants lost, where the Giants just stole defeat from the jaws of victory. Hopefully tonight, in a couple minutes, we could see the Houston Texans do some damn work against the Dallas Cowboys. Did the Redskins play? They play on Monday. Hopefully the Saints can get the job done. I mean, the best news is still. Even me, being a realistic Eagles fan, saying that this team looks incredibly average to bad with, we finally start playing good in the fourth quarter. You know what? That's the mantra of an average team. Average teams make mental mistakes for 75% of the game, and then they kind of look good. They kind of give you a little hope, a little optimism down the stretch. That's kind of the old Philadelphia Eagles. That's kind of the Philadelphia Eagles, when the Andy Reid era was starting to run its course. But the only, thing I think we can walk away is Philly still is the best team in the NFC East. Now, we have to go and prove it. We got a short week. On Thursday, we take on the New York Giants. But I think what you can just see from all the performances is that Philly's still probably the best team in the East. You only have to win your division to get in the playoffs. And I guess maybe we can hope that if Philly makes the playoffs, that's when we hit our stretch. And another thing that could, we don't know yet, we got to see how well this team responds, is how many teams that are perennial playoff teams always are known for slow starting. Seattle, when Seattle had the Legion of Boom, they always sucked in the first month. New England always sucks in the first month, and they're always in the playoffs. They always get hot when it matters. So we don't know if this is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles team that does that, but we know on paper the talent is there. So maybe that's just something that happens. Maybe it's, we're not used to this because Philly's just becoming a new thing of being a winning team. But all these teams that are constantly playing in January and February, that first month of the season, they always have super slow starts. And maybe it is the fatigue or all that stuff. But I don't know, man. The Michael Bennett penalty. You got Doug Pearson punting it instead of taking the long field goal. And just the slow start of the offense. That's why we lost. So, how they fix it, they just got to execute. Got to stop having stupid penalties. You got to give Carson Wentz time in the pocket. And defense, Jalen Mills, got to get him. Can't have Jalen Mills play corner right now. So, I'm going to kind of half watch the Cowboys lose. Hopefully, fingers crossed tonight, which will help us out at Philly. So, and hopefully everyone else in the division lose. So Philly's still tied for first in the division, which I guess, like I said, could be kind of good. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys have lots of water with you in this chat because there's probably a lot of Viking fans, and they just omit salt. So just be careful of that. And I'll see you guys if you tune in my live streams. I'm going to be probably slowly start switching over, and you'll start seeing these on Twitch. Just because I think I'm gonna go for Twitch partner. I can get it if I just stream franchise mode videos. If I want to try and get it, I can get it. And really, this is the only stream I use for YouTube. So I figure if you guys can just hop on over to the Twitch, we'll be fine. But I'll see you guys streams next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. They're gonna be good streams because fucking Call of Duty comes out later in the week, and I'm gonna be playing a lot of that. So catch me while you can before I go into a little hibernation on the stream front. And we'll preview the Philadelphia Eagles matchup against the Giants probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. And I'll see you guys for post-game grades Thursday night. Later, guys.